Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about a recent piece of nerd entertainment, and we talk about it in depth. So we look at the things we like, we look at the things we don't like, what worked, what didn't work. We talk about the larger topics of tone and message and theme and so on. And tonight we are going to be talking about season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. So if you have not seen season 4 of Star Trek Discovery, or realistically probably any of the previous seasons, because we're going to be talking about some of that, I'm sure, you should probably wait until you have seen those and then come back and watch this. If you have seen it and you don't mind, or you don't mind spoilers, then please hang out with us. Let us know what you think about the season in the chat, or what you think about our opinions of the season in the chat. And who would you be chatting at? Well, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram, mostly as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places doing bunches of other things. Joining me tonight is my co-owner at Nerd Caliber and the founder of the entire operation, Manny. Introduce yourself, if you would.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manny, and if, I don't see them all here yet, my brain's still trying to come back from the 30th century or whatever Discovery is at the moment. But I'm very happy to be here.
Cool. Excellent. So before we get started and start talking about the Star Trek Discovery itself and all of the things that are related to it, first promo, quick one, we're going to talk about Twitch. If you have a Twitch account, we'd love you to go to that URL right there, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. Look at what we do there. We stream live like this show and all, our other 2 weekly shows on Twitch and Facebook Live and YouTube. So wherever you like to watch live content, we're on it. And we'd love to have more followers there. So if you do have an account, please check it out. And if you like the stuff that you're seeing here, then do follow us. So what is Star Trek Discovery? And season 4, of course, is the 4th season of. Star Trek Discovery is a series on Paramount Plus, as it is currently named. Started when it was CBS. CBS
Access,
something.
CBS Access, I think.
CBS All Access. Yes, very good. Thank you. And it's basically a Star Trek series. It is a spin-off of the what's considered the main timeline of the Star Trek series that starts with the original series with Kirk, goes through the Next Generation with Picard, and then, of course, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, all of the original series movies, the Next Generation movies, etc. Now, Lower Decks and Prodigy, which are both in that timeline, the cartoons that are out there, and Discovery. And soon to be Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is the story of the Enterprise prior to Kirk under Christopher Pike. Can't wait for May. But the Discovery is the story of the Discovery and its current captain, Michael Burnham, in the time period starts about 10 years prior to when Kirk takes over the Enterprise. But it's a different ship, it's a different story, a different crew. It just happens to take place in that same universe, in that timeline. And so that makes it the earliest thing except for Enterprise, which is also in that timeline. And that is literally the beginning of the Federation, the one that had Scott Bakula in it. Season 1 was generally viewed as very non-Star Trek-like. It was an action thriller with elements of body horror show, space science fiction drama. Season 2, they brought in new showrunners. They had heard the complaints. It became much more of a Star Trek-like show while still maintaining a fair amount of the action and intrigue, dealing with the Starfleet CIA, Sector 7, Section 7,
Section 31, talk about?
31. That's what it is. Yes, 731, same number. Um, and season 3 solved the problem of how do you have a show that takes place 10 years prior to the actual original series when nobody on the original series ever mentions the ship, the fact that Spock has a sister or a half sister who's human, or any of that stuff. Well, you take them out of the timeline and they jump forward into the year 3000 something, basically 930 years from their timeline.
I'm really glad you're summarizing all this because even though I've watched every episode of Discovery, it's amazing how much of this stuff is forgettable.
Yeah, that's true. It is. The big picture stuff I actually remember pretty easily. I just don't. A lot of the detail stuff in each season, I really do forget. Um, but so they are at the beginning of season 3. They are 930 years into their future. It's part of the whole plot. It actually kind of makes sense at the end of season 2 that this happens. Um, and so season 3 is in this future, as is season 4. So now they can basically, write stories that do whatever they want without having to worry about the fact that, oh my God, that would have affected the original series because they are way past where the original series happened. Yeah, and that's it. So the story basically revolves around Captain Michael Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green, um, and the crew of the Discovery, Doug Jones as the very interesting alien Saru, first officer, um, and all sorts of other people. Anthony Rapp from Rent is science officer Stamets, Hugh Stamets. Um, and let's see, who else would you know? In this particular season, there's not probably that many other actors you might know the name of. Oded Fair plays the admiral at the head of Starfleet in this future, from so many wonderful things, the Mummy series, the Resident Evil series, and so on. Um, and David Cronenberg, of all things, plays Dr. Kovich, an AI researcher, and I guess many other things, but that's mainly what he is, who is kind of the science advisor to Starfleet. Um, and the rest of it are cast members that you probably don't know unless you've been watching this. It no longer has Anson Mount as Christopher Pike, who was in the second season. It no longer has Michelle Yeoh, who was in the first 3 seasons. So it's all, mainly the main crew and cast, with a few additional people, the president of the Federation, and actually, the president appeared at the last couple of episodes of season 3 too, and a research scientist, Tarka. I always get his name wrong. I don't know why I can't. It's so simple. Why can I not remember his name? I'm going to look it real quickly and not find it real quickly. So, yeah, Tarka. I guess I remembered it. I've called him everything like Tarkiv, Tavrik, yeah. Um, and that's pretty much it. Those are the only real, ongoing regular new characters from this season, or in this season, that weren't in previous seasons. So what we do now is we start talking about what we like about the series before we get into dislikes and larger subject matter and so on, themes and so on. Manny, let's hit that up. What did you like about this season? What worked for you? And what do you think they were shooting for and actually hit the target?
Well, I will say that the production value of these shows that are coming out, these Star Trek shows coming out from Paramount Plus, they you could tell they put a lot of money into it. The special effects, the stage, everything about that. They do a great job with that. Costuming, The aliens, the costuming, makeup for the aliens that they produced. That not one, I can't think of one where I thought that it was terrible in any way. I thought all of them were very creative. Um, but to be honest, that's something you could say about every season. I feel like every season they always do a good job with production and everything. Concerning season four, honestly, I'll start with the one thing that I thought that I liked the best, was the at the near the end when they were trying to find a way to communicate with the aliens.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that scene where they had to look into math and lights and a kind of like a puzzle and try to solve how to communicate with an alien species that was totally alien to them, that none of their communication devices could work for this alien race that was um, so beyond them
Yep.
in so many ways. And I'm really glad
I think
they
just I
have.
want to say beyond, yes, they're way beyond them in advancement in technology, but I think outside is as just as good a term. They are outside the scope of anything they've ever tried to communicate with.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad that species like that kind of exists. I've always I understand that old Star Trek they only had to do they were limited by their budget, so they couldn't really explore different types of species. So I'm glad that they brought that scenario up, and I again I that part I like the best, just the communication part of it, and that's uh, again, everyone acting wise, same thing like the other season, they do a great job. Whoever is the casting director for this series, uh, they're almost as talented as the cast themselves because it's all of them are doing a great job with what they're given script wise. There's no bad actors whatsoever in the show. I can't think of one that's annoyed me in their acting.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Cronenberg, and I would never have picked him for this role. I mean, I think the last role I saw him play that I liked, and this is going way back, is the villain from Nightbreed. And
That was
I doubt,
Cronenberg?
yeah, the guy with the buttons for eyes.
Yeah.
He was trying to, yeah, that was Cronenberg. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I didn't know that. Wow, that's amazing. Because I mean,
yes,
he's a director. He does very limited acting roles.
yes. But his voice is so, his mannerisms, his voice is so unique that I was like, wait, I know that actor, and I it's like, okay, that's the villain from Nightbreed. For all you old school Clive Barker horror fans. So I thought that was great. Tig Notaro as Jet Reno, uh, superb casting. I already talked before in other videos about Wilson Cruz, how he's a great actor, and Anthony Rapp. Um, Oded Fur as Charles Vance, the Admiral for
Yep.
the Federation. Great role. I'm glad to see him back. I love them in The Mummy, and I'm glad to see that he getting roles like these. Um, yeah, so like acting wise, actor wise, very impressed with that.
Yep. I particularly agree with Tig Notaro. Um,
Mm.
I honestly think that Tig Notaro. I don't know. I can't prove this. I think that Tig Notaro ad libbed at least 50% of their lines in probably since they started, but certainly in this season. Because the nature of even the length of words they say, but in the nature of their dialogue in general, is so radically different than the writing of any other bit of dialogue in the show. And I can't imagine that the writers are so tuned into that one character that they constantly write stuff that's that short, quippy, sarcastic, funny, and nobody else gets anything even remotely like it. Uh, I think it's got to be Notaro, just
Yeah,
right off the top of the head.
yeah, and I loved so I figured that Nataro was just the comedic uh, character for the show, but the part where all of them were well, Nataro and Tig, I forget the character's name. They were trapped in the prison of his ship toward the
Oh, Booker?
second Booker.
Yeah.
Yes. Why did I say Tig? Oh, that's the comedian. Sorry, confused the two. Um, but I love that Tig. Notaro was able to find a way out of it, like the way Tig figured out how to do it, and Tig's acting, I don't know, just to me was believable.
Right.
It didn't feel off in any way.
The most emotional line, I think, in that entire season was when Jet Reno gets transported back onto Discovery. Booker and Tarek are still on Booker's ship, and it looks like they're gonna die. And Notaro, walking past Burnham, just says, I wish I could remember the exact line because it wasn't as simple as "he really loves you," but it's just like that. It was something like, you know, let's say it was like, "He really loves you, and he wanted you to know that," and just the best delivery of almost any line in the entire season, all 12 episodes.
Yeah,
And for somebody who is and has been up to this point mostly comic relief,
yeah,
just so good. But anyway,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I would say the language thing, the language, the figuring out the languages of the species, the acting and production values.
Yeah. Basically the same things for me. The production values in this show always have amazed me right from the get go, and they haven't stopped. Um, which now they're in the 33rd century or whatever it is. They're almost 1,000 years past where they were, 930 years in the future, and so there's, as you might imagine, all kinds of different and new technology than you're used to seeing in a Star Trek series, and they still do it. You know, even fairly little things like having, you know, transportation technology is so good that people literally can beam things into their own hands. And doing that, having things just appear in your hand, um, that's a little bit of sort of flavor special effects that they don't need to do, but they do it a lot, and it's that indicates that they know where their budget wants to go, or needs to go, or at least that part of it. But yeah, everything, and again, like you said, costume design is fantastic. I kind of jokingly said earlier that this was season 4, the fashion season. I think that Burnham is in at least 5 different official uniforms throughout the course of the season, which isn't a bad thing. It's actually kind of cool to see them do different things, and these uniforms, kind of like modern military. Modern military has at least U.S. military has at least 3 different. You've got your BDUs, your fatigues as they used to call them. You've got, and then generally 2 types of dress uniform for 2 different types of events. Your general everyday traveling around dress uniform, and then there's generally a event, more formal dress uniform. In here, they then add just a couple of other things, but they're all official uniforms. So I think that was pretty cool. The design of, in addition to the novel way they dealt with communicating with the species 10C, the species that is behind the big bad of this entire season, which is a thing called a dark matter anomaly. It's at first they think is a natural phenomenon, turns out not to be, that is just moving through the galaxy and destroying solar systems in its wake. The design and just general concept of Species 10C is fantastic. One of the best science fiction-y things they've done. I mean, it's really, interesting science fiction.
Yeah, for the first 3 seasons of science fiction, I thought was poor or soft. If
Right.
that makes sense. Just typical stuff that everyone knows, and not really thought provoking.
I'll disagree with that in one thing. I think that their take on the Klingons, because they presented so much new Klingon culture, was fantastic in season 1. I know a lot of people hated the Klingons. I didn't. I thought it was absolutely fantastic how deeply they explored the Klingon culture and added to just vast amounts of new uh, information to the Klingon lore.
Yeah, I kind of wish they were um maybe expanded that, maybe made done his own series on that instead of what we got in season one.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that would be really cool. Um, I don't know if they could get enough actors who are willing to do that. That both prosthetic, special effect makeup on the face and the head, but the teeth things,
Mm.
just anyway. Um, but you're right. In season two, they didn't do a whole lot of that. Season two was pretty much a political intrigue season.
The time traveling mother,
Yeah,
I don't know. I just felt that was really silly.
yeah.
I mean, well,
Well,
okay,
hey, in this season, she's still, in the future where she landed. She's just now part of a, vast, weird Vulcan Romulan warrior nun. Wow, whatever.
who
Um,
wrote that?
hmm?
Who wrote that? That
I don't
okay. All right, sure.
But we're still talking about things we like, so we'll not talk about that. And but yeah, I agree. That part of it, anyway, was some of the best science fiction. Um, Other parts of it were not. But
Hmm.
so what else did I think I really liked about it? Like you said, the actors are all fantastic. I already crowed about how awesome Tig Notaro is as Jet Reno. Um, who unfortunately is only in like the last 3 episodes. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was odd, but
so I'm thinking that a lot of the stuff, like not having Tilly in the middle block of episodes, and um, uh, who else? Gray leaving entirely after episode 6. I'm assuming that had to do with other work conflicts and or COVID related work conflicts and so on. So, which is kind of too bad because this season would have been so much better if it was like the Jet Reno show. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, but all the actors, again, like you said, really, they are excellent actors. The direction that was given to them in some of the choices we'll get into in the next segment, which is too bad in my mind, because they are all excellent actors. And if you get someone like Tig Notaro, who basically looks at the direction for the most part, I think, and even some of the lines and goes, yeah, no, I'm going to do Tig Notaro. And it's going to be funny and you're going to like it. Nobody else is going to do that. So, something else. No, I think that's pretty much it. I guess that pretty much wraps up the things that I like, which unfortunately you guys have probably gathered this is going to be a longer segment. So, Manny, what didn't you like? What didn't work for you? What do you think they were trying for and just missed the mark completely?
okay. I will try to keep it short. I I I will say that I'm really tired what I call the Harry Potter syndrome. All right, hear me out. In every Harry Potter book, well, except for the first one, well, although it follows the same thing, Harry Potter starts off as like he's just being picked on, horrible abuse. He triumphs over that, saved the day, and he is loved at the end. He fixes everything. By the next book, it's like it reverses that. He's getting crapped on, fights abuse, he's trying to deal with all this stuff, and then at the end he's loved, he solves the mystery, blah blah blah, starts over again. I feel like Michael. So all if almost all the Star Trek captains I've watched, very rarely do I see their command being doubted and questioned as much as I see it with Michael all the time, and I'm getting sick and tired of it. Okay, first season, okay, I understand. You're a science officer, and then but by the end of the third season, you're the captain, and I think okay, they're finally gonna put this to rest. But no, then the president of the federation's gotta go on the ship with her, kind of keep an eye on her, and then challenge her authority, and it keeps happening again and again. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just sick of it. I'm just, I've never seen. I'm so tired of this happening with Discovery. I let Michael be. I mean, Michael has saved the Federation out of uh, major trouble time and time again, especially out of the ridiculousness of the last few seasons. Uh, so that just bugs me a lot. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again with the next season because I don't know how much I could take that. But speaking of Michael,
I'm wondering how much of that is deliberate in the idea that they are trying to, uh, maybe not consciously, but maybe consciously, make a statement about women in command or women in authority anywhere. Um, uh, and I think it doesn't make any sense that they would still be like that in the 22nd century or 23rd century, much less the 33rd century. But as a statement about what our society is like now, because frankly, this season is entirely a statement about what our society is like now. Um, then I think that may be why they've been doing that consistently all along. You know, but I agree, it's getting tiring. You
yeah,
know,
I
this is
mean
a science fiction world.
Janeway never got picked on like that
Now that's
ever,
true. That is absolutely true.
and she had to deal with half her crew was the Marquis. I would expect that I could expect like, all right, you're not, we want to fight your command. And maybe there was a few episodes here where they did that, but it wasn't the entire season after season. Um, but going on from that, I really also hate that how there's some great secondary characters. Saru, Saru. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm saying that wrong. Um, the doctor, Stamets, all these characters. Even you mentioned Jet Reno. There's these great characters, and I feel like they only give them like 2 minutes to shine, maybe no time to shine at all each episode. And I'm just, I don't know. I'm just okay. So in the probably the worst episode, the one where they're in the casino.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I hated that episode. That's just so stupid. It's so it was like a eight like connect the dots plot line that's so simple. But the one character they brought in was what's her name? Her character's name. She was the in the episode with Michael.
Joanne Second.
Great character. Can we see her more than once for like maybe 10 minutes in the episode? Because she's a great character. In season 3, I believe she saved. She led the way to save a lot of characters
Yep.
toward the end. Um, can I see more of that, please? I feel like they have these. I don't know. I feel like
Well, I agree.
that's why
Season 3, everybody it seems had more of that.
Yeah,
Detmer had her big, save moment, but also there was a big loss, and she had to deal with that. There was a whole episode about Detmer not having that confident swagger that she's always had. Um,
yeah,
and but you're right. All of the supporting characters last season, the crew, got a lot more time to shine.
yeah.
And this is, I mean, I don't know whether that was a decision on their part that Martin Green needed more screen time, or that it's just the nature of the way the story is structured. Because the story is pretty much all at command level and above,
Yeah.
except for the filler episodes, and that's the problem. I'll get into that later. But the first 6 episodes, 4 of them are just straight up filler.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I feel like they same thing happened with Picard season 1. I feel like they found the problem, but to get to solving that problem took forever.
yeah,
And that's why I felt the same way. Like they know that this problem was caused by creatures, by alien species outside the galaxy, but for them to get to that point took forever. And uh, Tarka's motivation for doing what he had to do just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And even less sense was how he changed his mind at the end. Like, okay, now I see what I'm doing. All this chaos and destruction I'm doing. Now I see the problem, and I hate when stories do that
yep.
to villains. They gotta make him crazy all the way.
Or even
So yeah,
I mean, I've seen some of the most effective things like, oh my God, you're right. I'm wrong. I've been wrong all along, but I'm still going to do it because this is what I want.
yeah,
You know, yeah. Anyway, but you're right. So
yeah.
sorry. Other things that you dislike.
Uh, just real fast. What I liked about season 3 was everything that led up until the ending. I thought the ending was awful. You know, I had the opposite problem with season four. I thought the whole way to getting to solve this problem was terrible. It felt like I never felt like work
Yeah.
trying to watch the show. You know, the ending was great. I love the Stacey Adams. I love her appearance at the end
Abrams.
of that show. Abrams, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, I love her. I thought that was great. How they resolved the conflict at the end was okay. You know, with the exception of Tarka and whatever. Um, but I enjoyed this ending much better than any of the endings from all the other seasons of Discovery. I felt more content. I guess if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Um, all right. So I have the same basic complaints, and then a few others. Um, as I mentioned, the first half of this 12 episode season is, like 4 out of the 6 episodes are just filler and bad filler.
What that casino episode was stupid.
Well, the casino episode was stupid, but that actually was in the second block. That was in
Episode 10 maybe or 9.
that was episode 8.
Ugh,
So,
okay.
and at that point they had, so in episode 7 is when everything really starts. Anything prior to that is just sort of generally futzing around. Episode 7, they discover what this anomaly is. They discover where the beings are that created it. They create an interesting, one of the very few, well, it's not true. I think most of the B plots in most of these later episodes are as interesting, if not more interesting, than the main plot. Zora, the ship's artificial intelligence, not wanting to give out the location of this species because she's worried that it'll kill the crew, is a great B plot. But prior to that, they're just, it's astonishingly stupid, the writing, when it's got things like these fantastic species 10C and the science fiction around them, and all of that wonderful deep thought kind of, this is really neat that they've done this in a season that is essentially bad anime writing. I mean, literally, there are episodes where there's intrigue or action going on, and in the middle of it, 2 people take time to talk deeply about their feelings. Or there's a flashback in an episode that's trying to get us to identify with the villain so we can start seeing it from their point of view and humanizing the... There are things that are done in this season that they don't think about using later on in this season that would make life so much easier. And that is like, that's fairy tale bad. I mean, as far as an anime goes, there's an anime called Fairy Tail, if you don't know it. The writing is terrible. The main character literally will end a story arc by learning a new skill and then immediately not understand that they can apply that skill to the next problem in the next story arc. And that is what's going on here. It's bad anime writing. And it blows my mind that, I mean, this series has had its ups and downs, but this season is just... when I first sat down, I started watching it, and they did a really dumb science thing, and I went, yeah, okay. I'm not going to harp on my usual Star Trek dumb science thing, particularly about the one that really bugs me is that, death should never happen because transporters exist. Except they use that as a plot element. They literally use that as a plot element in episode Stormy Weather 6. By having everybody on the ship wind up in the pattern buffer of the transporter while Burnham takes the ship out of this void that could, moving through it, could kill them. She almost dies, of course doesn't. And then, of course, they all basically get retransported. They come out of the pattern buffer and they're better. So they understand the idea that you can store eternally, infinitely, the pattern buff or the pattern of somebody who is being transported. And if they die, you just recreate them from the most recent transporter pattern buffer. And anybody who's ever watched any of the stuff where I talk about Star Trek knows that I just rail against that every time. And I decided, it's like, nope, I'm not gonna this season. And then they went and used it without ever acknowledging what it means, that nobody should ever die ever in the Federation.
The ship is sentient too, so it would know when someone's in trouble.
Exactly. It just, but anyway, the one that really got me was what Bad Warrior Nun, episode 3, Choose to Live. So another member of this Kawat Malat order that Burnham's mother is a part of, Javini, a Romulan, basically is going around with other, of these sword-wielding ninja types they're now a squad of thieves stealing dilithium. And, there's some pretty dumb writing about, the president of Navarre, was named Vulcan, is insisting that this religious order, literally religious order, be allowed to do things their way, even though in the last attack a Starfleet officer was killed, which shouldn't have stayed. But anyway, and that's bad enough. It's like, okay, but that just Starfleet would never do that. That just doesn't make any sense. But okay, they get to where this person has been hiding out, and it turns out it's a literal moon-sized cryogenic suspended animation starship that has millions, billions, who knows, of this alien species in it. And the person has taken this on as their quest, basically, to try to save this species, because anyway, Tilly manages to deactivate the engine on this thing in minutes, and the technology they've never seen from a species they've never ever encountered. And then Burnham turns around and activates the, at this point, suspended or non-functioning cryogenic system to try to resurrect these things, or to resurrect them. She doesn't try, it works. Again, accessing a control panel on a starship they didn't know exist, of a kind they didn't know exist, from a species they didn't know exist, and does it in minutes. Like, okay, all right. I understand that we're now in Star Wars science fantasy. This is not Star Trek anymore. This is Star Wars science fantasy with religious sword-wielding order nut jobs, but okay, I get it. And Burnham revives these aliens and then sits back on the Discovery and watches hundreds of thousands of them, as far as you can tell, leaving their ship in their own little, escape pods or whatever, which has to be a violation of the Prime Directive, of every other directive. She knows nothing about this species whatsoever, and has never communicated with them, decides to resurrect all of them and just sit back and watch them go out. She could have just killed the whole galaxy. She has no idea whether or not she did. I mean, she doesn't, of course, because the rest of the season happens. No. Even Burnham in previous seasons would never have done something that dumb. Ever. And the fact that they wrote that as something that makes sense for the character, that makes sense for the Federation, that makes sense for command structure, that it just... I almost stopped watching. Well, I did stop watching, because that was the last one I watched when I first watched. Like, I made it up to episode 3 and went, well, F this. And then watched the rest of it in the last 2 days because we had the show. And that's the worst of them, but there's so many others like that. So when Book finally decides that he's not going to attack the first DMA, dark matter anomaly, power core thing in the middle of it, this Tarka wants to destroy it, thinks it can give him this power that would enable him to get into... He's from a parallel universe, so he's supposed to get back to his parallel universe. But it's not the Terran Empire, it's another one. Guess what? Multiverses exist in Star Wars, or Star Trek. Booker is helping him because he wants revenge for his home planet got destroyed. That's like the very first episode. His home planet gets destroyed, one of the first things that they see getting destroyed by this dark matter anomaly. So Booker is trying to help him. Eventually, Burnham convinces Booker that that's not the way to go, that, destroying it is going to look like an act of war to this species that they've never seen. Guess what? You didn't care about that 5 episodes ago, but that's okay. And so everyone's like, okay, all right, good, fine, we'll stand down. Seconds ago, Tarka had just pleaded, almost on his knees, pleaded with Booker to not stop him from blowing up this planet. Tarka had already modified the controls, the navigation system of Booker's ship. And so I'm looking at this as like, okay, when are they going to put him in chains? When is somebody going to stop him? What's good? Nope. Immediately, Burnham goes, "Oh, good, everything is great now. The screens go off. They all go." And Tarka just turns to him and says, "Whoa, you can't stop me!" Boom, fires the bomb into the thing. Like, Booker's character was for decades functioning as, this wasn't really what he wanted to do, but functioning as a smuggler, a merchant, a trader, even a thief within the Emerald Chain system. If he didn't have the basic understanding of when somebody is about to do something horrible to him, or lying or anything like that, he would have died decades ago. The Emerald Chain is brutal. That was one of the good things about season 3. It made no sense whatsoever that Booker would trust this guy for a second. Even if Booker is grieving, the minute he agreed that he wasn't going to do this guy's plan, he was no longer in the grieving mode that would make him do dumb things for this guy. He said, "Oh, I'm not doing your plan." He promised Burnham that. So immediately, season 3 Booker would have gone, okay, now we got to do something about this dude. Season 4 Booker went, everything's roses, and oh, why are you pushing that fire button? Ugh. Anyway. So yeah, there's the writing is, character writing particularly, except for the side stories. Adira and Gray's story, sadly it ends in the middle of the season, essentially, but it was fantastic. Zora, the artificial intelligence story, was fantastic. Even the clumsy relationship building between Saru and the president of Nivar, Tarina, is good. The main story and the way the characters deal with the main story is just idiotic. Because they do dumb stuff that nobody in a previous 3 episodes would have done based on how their characters were written in the previous 3 episodes. So that just really galled me. And then the direction, aside from Stamets, and I think this is Anthony Rapp saying, no, my character is basically this annoying genius diva, and so he's going to always be an annoying genius diva. and Tig Notaro, who basically, I think, literally does their own lines no matter what. Everybody talks in really earnest and fairly low hushed terms, even when they're being stern, like the Admiral is. Just, it's never. I like would pause it if I was happened to be eating lunch or something while watching one of the episodes because you just couldn't hear it. It's like, well, it's important that we talk about this. It's like, somebody shout at somebody. Jesus. Anyway, so bad directing, bad writing, terrible character writing. It picks up the pace, as Manny said, in the last few episodes. It actually gets pretty exciting. Okay, my one last rant about their technology and how they screwed it up. They say what would have been, if this was any other show, a really interesting thing. They talk about how they don't think their universal translators are going to work because they have essentially a confirmation bias right in the translator itself. That they basically always deal with carbon-based, bipedal, vocalizing life forms. I was like, wow, that's really interesting, except it's not true. It's not true in the Star Trek canon. The original series had the Horda. They had the Tholians. The second season the Next Generation had those space whales in the very first episode. And I'm sure other things that I'm not remembering right now. There are, in the movies, they had plenty of other carbon-based bipedal vocalizing life forms. That's within, let's see, from the start of the series of Discovery to the end of the Next Generation block of series, because they all take place about the same time, is about 130 years. So from the end of Next Generation's block of time, that includes Voyager and Deep Space Nine and all that other stuff, it's about 800 years into the future where they are now. So if they've encountered all of those humanoid-esque alien creatures in their 130 years, how many do you think the Federation has encountered as it's expanded in the 800 years? Now, granted, it contracted after the burn, but, it was expanding for many hundreds of years after that, before the burn happened. It's not true. When you say that the Universal Translator hasn't encountered, it has a confirmation bias because it hasn't encountered these non-humanoid, it's not true. You have. The Federation has. Anyway. So I'm done ranting. Manny. Was there an overarching theme to this? Did it have a consistent tone? Was there a message that was supposed to come out of this?
Well, I think it was trying to talk about grief, and but it's not a new message at all. In fact, I kind of see it as everything about it is soft. The message, the science fiction, character growth. I feel like it's dumbed down so that all audiences could enjoy it, and I really hate that. I wish they would have more faith in the audience, have more respect for Star Trek, and give us. I mean, the fact that The Expanse is such a greater sci-fi series than Star Trek. If you would have told me that a few years ago, I would like, no way, But not to get down to sidetrack. But back to like the themes, I would say it's trying to deal with grief. It's very typical, like young adult Harry Potter type of thing, where like relationships for the first time. Let me talk to my friend, like, hey, how should I talk to this girl? Do you have any pointers? And I hate stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's CW drama stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That was silly. I think you're right. I think they tried to make a story about grief and kind of messed it up. I think they tried to make a story about trust, because that runs through the whole thing. Burnham's got to trust her mother in this mission to find this rogue Coat Malat order. Um, you know, Booker's got to trust Burnham. Burnham's got to trust Booker. Except they screw it up by having one of the biggest, and most important moments happen because somebody stupidly and blindly trusted somebody in a way that was not even remotely appropriate for the character. So, I think they really are trying, understanding and communication and so on. Well, sure, they wind up communicating with a whole brand new species in a completely new and very innovative way, and they still can't communicate with each other. Oh, yeah. It bothers me. Tone, I think overall, the first episode or the first season was absolutely a war tone, a dark, gritty war story. The second season was a political intrigue thriller story. The third season was, let's try to figure out what we're going to be in the fourth season, I think. And the fourth season, they didn't figure it out. So if you're looking at what the thumbnail said, did Discovery, in season 4, did Discovery find itself? No. There's going to be a season 5. They actually did confirm that back in January. Which I'm kind of surprised about because I don't remember reading that, and I had to look it up because they wrap up season 4 like it's the series end. Because they, the Burnham's narration at the end talks about the things that happened over the last 2 seasons since they moved forward in time. Like it's really wrapping things up and going, okay, well, that's our adventure in the future. Thanks, it's been a fun show. But no, they are doing a 5th season.
I wonder if they're doing a soft reboot because Tilly's not coming back. It sounds like Tilly's going to be a teacher. Maybe they're going to restructure their cast a little bit so that it's, I don't know, they could give more of them a chance to shine. Who knows?
It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with it and whether or not it's actually viable. Honestly, right now, I'm not looking forward to the idea of watching another 12 episodes of this in season 5. I'll, of course, give it a couple of episodes to see, but, when after those couple of episodes, when it comes up on our, hey, are we going to do this for Full Fat Spoiler Chat, next March? Assuming that's when it, wraps up, we'll have to have that discussion, Manny.
Yeah. This is going to sound silly, and I think if they would have done it, it would have been very silly, but it would have been kind of cool being that Michael is the stepsister to Spock. If that at the galaxy when they got to the other side, if they would have encountered something that would have reminded us from Star Trek 5 dealing with I know
no,
it's terrible.
No
but at least some sort of link. I like something, but I feel like I thought they were going with that a little bit. It's like, oh,
maybe they fly by a planet. It's like, hey, that's where the dumbest movie in the original series movies ever happened. Oh, please, never bring up. The funny thing is, I remembered the bomb that Tarka was making, and I was like, why do I remember that? It's from Insurrection. It's from the worst of the Next Generation movies. That was the explosive type that F. Murray Abraham, I can't remember, I have no idea what his character is, Shredface, was going to blow up, and it was a subspace, destroying bomb, and that's why I was like, well, that sounds awfully familiar. That's what it came from. So they did reference something. It, again, just happened to be one of the worst movies in the Star Trek canon, but, okay. Yeah, I could say, so normally we go, would you recommend this? And this particular season alone, where would you put it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would say 2 out of 10.
Wow.
I would honestly say skip it. Go to the last was it 2 episodes when they go into the language part of it and like the aliens. I thought that was really cool. That's probably the best part for me. Because honestly, if you take out the first 10 episodes and just give like a 5 minute brief of what happened, that's all you need. This season was way too long. It should have been shortened by half.
Yeah.
It dragged down way too long. Yeah, 2 out of 10.
So I would say, I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say maybe start with episode 9, because that has, just so you could see how dumb Booker's trusting decision is, because that's where it happens. But yeah, if not 9, then I would say 10. I think you really want to come in where they really start to realize they have to try to cross the galactic barrier. But I'm going to give it a 3, which isn't much higher praise. Only because of the production values and the cast, and I still really like this cast, and I really like the production values. And Reno was in 3 episodes, so it's a 3 out of 10. Or, well, I guess it would be 3 out of 12, so that would be like a 2 out of 10. Anyway, and I wouldn't recommend, unless you're a completionist, unless you really need to see all Star Trek stuff, I would skip the entire season. Or like Manny said, maybe come in at, episode 10, maybe episode 11, and just watch the end of it. You watch the little, summary at the beginning and don't skip it like I always do. That'll tell you everything you need to know to get you into the episode.
Yeah, none of it really matters.
Right. All right, folks, that's it. I ranted longer than I thought, like I usually do when it's something this dumb. But our last promo is our Patreon webpage, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. The URL that's on your screen right now. We'd really love to have you go check it out. If you would like to, we'd love to have you as a patron. Your money would help us go to cons. And speaking of which, in 2 weekends, we will be at, well, actually it's 3 weekends, technically. We will be at Wicked Comic-Con. The one-day con, Saturday, August 9th, in the Westin Waterfront Hotel, South Boston. Be there, check us out. We will be at PAX East the 21st through the 24th, that weekend. In strength. We'll have a big crew there. And our cosplay and photography shootout event/panel is Saturday night, 7:30, Arachnid Theater. If you've seen it, you know what it's all about. It's a lot of fun. Participate or just watch people run around like crazy, trying to get really amazing images in a really tiny bit of time. Then May 7th is Free Comic Book Day. I believe I'll be at Double Midnight in Manchester. And the end of May is Anime Boston, and Nerd Caliber will be there in force, either as press or, like me, running the photo department. So you will find me and Greg, Greg, depending on how shifts work, at room 102, which is the Anime Boston Cosplay Photo Studio. As running the photo department, I will also be running the studio. And that's where you can find us if you want to come get your free, Nerd Caliber photos, but also free Anime Boston photos, because they're going to get them just like we are. That was our deal for having me run their whole shindig. And so we'll see you then, hopefully. Manny, after all this excitement and the thrill of having to talk about this show, give us a goodbye.
Live long and prosper elsewhere.
Live long and prosper without this show. Or at least without this season. Yes, that's a great way to wrap it up, folks. And also, stay safe.
Yeah.
Out there, people. All right. We will talk to you or see you at another show.